O God, give us life, that we may call upon your name. Restore us, O Lord God of hosts. Show the light of your countenance, and we shall be saved. When I looked at the readings assigned for today, I thought, oh boy, how in the world am I going to find good news for us in Jesus longing to bring fire to the earth and Isaiah sharing a love song from God that is as bloodthirsty as King George's ditties from Hamilton? I will kill your friends and family to remind you of my love. God sent Isaiah to a people who had turned their backs on their calling as God's chosen ones, a people who had shared a special intimacy with God and who were entrusted with the responsibility to seek justice, to care for the widowed and orphaned, the dispossessed, the foreigners in the land. The Israelites neglected their call, placing a higher value on amassing power and profit. They ignored the poor and the powerless and failed to care for the foreigner and alien in the land. Isaiah sings God's love song to his beloved people. This vineyard God has cultivated, eagerly anticipating the good fruit that will be harvested from God's labors. This peculiar love song takes a turn as God realizes that the vineyard, despite being so lovingly tended, bears fruit that is wild and not at all in keeping with God's purpose. God expected justice, but saw bloodshed, righteousness, but heard a cry. Suddenly, the song switches gears as God asks what more could be done for his vineyard and resolves to tear it apart stone by stone. In the song, the prophet sings of God's deep frustrations at the limitations of God's chosen people. God called them to live in community, to show active love for one another, to care for and steward the shared resources of the earth. God asked them again and again to rein in the selfish impulses of their hearts and practice open generosity with those on the margins, the widows, orphans, and aliens in the land. In our gospel lesson this morning, Jesus picks up the refrain of God's frustration and runs with it. Our pericope about Jesus' longing to bring fire comes on the heels of a parable about a master who arrives home at an unexpected hour and finds his servants behaving contrary to his wishes. In his absence, some of the servants have set themselves over the others and have beaten and abused them. And Jesus asks his disciples to think about whether the master would be angrier at the set of misbehaving servants who were ignorant of the master's desire for justice and yet acted badly, or who knew what the master wanted and engaged in abusive and dehumanizing behavior anyway. And then Jesus exclaims about bringing fire to the earth and wishing it were already kindled. I feel his pain. I look around at the world today, at masked vigilantes bearing our government's aegis while they terrorize immigrant communities, driving so much fear that people, actual human beings who deserve dignity, respect, and at the very least due process, run from them regardless of danger. I look at the photos and videos of starving children, adults, and medical workers in Gaza. I read about universities being extorted and scientists silenced and critical research canceled and consumer financial protections walked back, and. My heart breaks, but I also feel a fiery anger, and I understand what would prompt Jesus to long for a cleansing, renewing fire to sweep all that terrible injustice away. What does it mean to follow Jesus? Did Jesus hold himself apart from the world, careful always to maintain the right appearance? Was he nice? Did he gather everybody together to sing weekly songs about God's power and might and convince the powerful that they had earned their power, that they deserved it? No. Jesus was not nice or polite, and he did not come to play. Do you think that I came to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. You hypocrites, you know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? As an inhabitant of this present time, rife with political and social divisions, I could wish that there was a little more peace, a little less division. But all too often, that peace comes at the cost of looking the other way while people commit evil deeds. That peace would have us reason that only a criminal would run into freeway traffic, callously ignoring the cost that poor man paid with his life, a cost we all pay. If there is a peace that is only experienced by some of us, it is not peace. It is a lie. If we are truly oriented toward following Jesus, how can we be satisfied with a peace that is not universal? How can we bear to choose politeness and niceness, to tiptoe around being too political, while all around us people suffer oppression and degradation and the deep indignity of not being seen as fully human by those in positions of power and authority, and perhaps by a plurality of everyday Americans? There are times when the Bible's prophetic word resonates so strongly, when we read about the prophets who were sent by God to provide a course correction for Israel, and we feel the stern words resonate with a very present truth. Our world is in desperate need of a course correction. The world needs justice, and we need to choose whether we will work to bring it about, whether we will risk being seen as divisive, or whether we will join the throngs of those who wring their hands uselessly, sending up thoughts and prayers for a peace that only they can feel. We need to ask ourselves, daily if necessary, what it means to say that we follow Jesus if we do not disrupt oppressors, if we ignore the plight of those suffering tyranny and injustice, if we fail to feed the hungry, to meet every human need that presents itself to us, regardless of the arbitrary distinctions of class, race, nationality, legal status, gender expression, or political affiliation. Jesus had a baptism with which to be baptized. He was on a path to contend with political power and experience as God the fate all too often visited upon humans at the margins. In the cross, Jesus stands in solidarity with every person who lives or dies in fear, the victim of a system that disregards their humanity. We also have a baptism, one that calls us to seek and serve Christ in all persons, to love our neighbor, to strive for justice and peace, and respect the dignity of every human being. When we truly follow Jesus, we will find opportunities to express our calling as God's people, God's beloved, well-tended vineyard, bearing the good fruit of justice. We gather in vigils and protest rallies. We bring gifts of food and clothing to those who need them. We extend welcome and hospitality to new acquaintances, listening to their stories and sharing the love of God by being present with them. And above all, we resist the pull of cynical despair, trusting in our hope, choosing hope. When we turn to God, carrying God's love into the world, seeking justice and true peace, there we find hope. Amid the imagery of fire and division, of God destroying the beloved vineyard, today's appointed psalm gives us a glimpse of the truth of God. Fire, division, and righteous anger aside, God's overarching goal is restoration. Give us life that we may call upon your name. Restore us, O Lord God of hosts. Show the light of your countenance, and we shall be saved. God's mercy is universal and wide enough for everyone. So let us work toward justice and strive toward a peace that reaches every person. Thanks be to God.